Welcome to my C Beginner tutorial focusing on embedded development. This issue covers if, else if and else statements. If statements can be used to influence the flow of a program. If an if or else if statement is true, then an action can be executed. If the if condition is false, the next else if condition is checked, and the action is executed if the condition was true. If the if and all else if conditions were false, an action can be executed at the else case. In this line, an unsigned variable is declared and initialized with 0. I discussed this in my second video with the title Unsigned Data Types. This line is only required to get the output of the print statements directly on the console. In this line we have our if statement. The variable is checked against 0. If this expression becomes true, the code in the curly brackets will be executed. Please write curly brackets after every if, else if, or else statement. These could be omitted if only one line follows, as in these example. However, this is prone to errors, and brackets always improve the readability of the source code. Here a print is made to the console. The string value set to 0 is output. The \n is used to make the cursor jump to a new line after the output. This is necessary if several outputs follow one after the other, otherwise they are all in one line. Lines 15 to 22 are currently still commented out and are not executed. I discussed this in the tutorial about comments. Let's examine this program with the debugger. Now the check is performed. Our variable is 0. Since 0 match our variable value, the statement is true. We enter to the curly bracket containing the printf statement. We'll step one more line, and our text is output to the console. I am now changing the initialization of the variable to 1. I rebuild the project and debug. I step forward to the if check. Our variable is 1. 0 does not match our variable value. The statement is now false. Therefore, we skip the print and see nothing on the console. Now I uncomment on the else case. If no previous statement applies, we always run into the else case. I rebuild the project and debug. Our variable is 1. 0 does not match our variable value. The statement is now false. If I continue stepping, we end up in the else case. One further step and we see the print from the else case. If the if statement was false and all else if cases were false, the else case is always executed. Now I will activate the else if statement. I rebuild the project and debug. Our variable is 1. 0 does not match our variable value. The statement is now false. Now I step forward to the else if case. Since 1 match our variable value, the statement is true. If I take one more step, we end up in the code of the else if condition. We'll step one more line. Here we also see the output on the console. I will insert a second else if condition to demonstrate the behavior. Our variable is 1. 0 does not match our variable value. The statement is now false. Since 1 match our variable value, the statement is true. We'll step one more line. Here we also see the output on the console. You saw as soon as an if-else was true. The rest was skipped and no longer checked. This will be my last example. Here, I change the value of the variable to 2. Our variable is 2. 0 does not match our variable value. The statement is now false. Our variable is 2. 1 does not match our variable value. The statement is now false. Since 2 match our variable value, the statement is true. We'll step one more line. Here we also see the output on the console. It must always start with an if statement. Else-if statements are optional. Multiple else-if statements can also be inserted. An else statement can be added at the end, but this is also optional. If statements can be nested, you can place if statements inside another if statement. As soon as the first condition was true, all subsequent conditions are no longer checked or executed. Below the video in the video description, you will find links to the source code, the Eclipse development environment I use here, and also to further C tutorials. If you liked the video, please support me by giving it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.